because I do have adult ADHD. I'm self-diagnosed. Well, I had ADD when I was
You
little.
self-diagnose yourself with a lot of things, though, PJ.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham, of a mockery of a travesty of two mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!
Hello, everybody. It's time for some more Law Light, brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtree, FWH Legal, located at the high-rise White Tower at 530 Frederick Street, Owensboro, Kentucky, but offices all across the Commonwealth and over into Indiana. It's a great day. I'm caffeinated. PJ, how are you?
I'm good. I'm not caffeinated yet.
Well,
It's
when
still
we
early.
record these in the afternoon, my introduction is more like, hey, everybody, it's time for some more Law Light, brought to you by. But in the morning, if we record them in the morning, it is, hey, everybody, what's up? Hey, hey, hey.
I noticed that.
Have you noticed that?
Oh, I've noticed.
That's the difference in what caffeine makes. You know, I'm getting old, so I don't drink caffeine in the afternoons because it keeps me up all night.
Right.
So when I get my opportunity in the morning to indulge in caffeine, man, do I take advantage of
Yeah.
it. You know?
It's odd. Caffeine doesn't have the same effect on me as it used to. I don't drink that much caffeine. One thing I found out with Logan, he has ADHD. The doctor said that caffeine actually has a reverse effect on him. So if he drinks caffeine rather than it interacts differently with the ADHD,
Wow.
and it causes him to calm down rather than speed up. And I've noticed that if I drink something with caffeine, especially like in the evening time, I get more tired. So I don't know if it's because I do have adult ADHD. I'm self-diagnosed. Well, I had ADD when I was little.
You self-diagnose yourself with a lot of things.
I do.
PJ.
Well, I did have ADD before it was ADHD as a child, and it went untreated.
How do you keep up with all these letters? I mean, I would be saying ACDC and
Yeah, I like ACDC.
LMNOP, QRS.
Well, there's especially with Logan has several diagnoses, so he has ADHD, DMDD.
That's
yeah.
Doctor Dental Medicine, isn't it?
Correct.
Or something like that. So, all right. Well, anyway, things are picking back up here. You know,
They are.
I was in depositions yesterday all day. I have depositions all day today. And I have depositions for half a day tomorrow, so it's kind of getting back into the swing of things. I'm enjoying that, yet I am having to, because, you know, last night I went home from being in depositions all day and then worked on preparing for the ones on Friday, you know. But I'm not going to complain because we certainly are have been wanting this to come. Wanting this to come along. So the last time we met,
Right.
do you recall what we talked about?
Oh, yeah, I remember very vividly.
Okay.
Well, I remember what we talked about, but we didn't really fully talk about it.
What was that?
You're talking about the 21 questions where I lost automatically because there was no conclusion. We didn't find out.
You're right.
But today is the day.
Well, that's the problem. I'm not going to be able to make the announcement today.
Why?
Just because.
That was a very direct question and a very direct answer.
Here's what I'll promise you.
Okay.
The announcement will be made Monday.
Didn't you say that we would announce it on the next podcast?
No, if you go back and listen to the last podcast, I said I'll be announcing it on the next podcast, but if not, then on the following one. You got to go back and listen.
I was going to say I won't say you're wrong, but I didn't commit
I'm
that
right.
to memory.
I'm right. I'm right. I remember my
Spoken
words.
like a true attorney.
So here's the deal. It's been made official, but there's an agreement that it won't be announced.
Okay, I was going to say it's official. How come we haven't? But
right, it's
okay,
official.
I got you now.
It's
I'm following.
official.
Right.
But it will not be announced until Monday, because there are some people that have been informed about it that are needing to, you know, kind of dot the I's and cross the T's.
Right.
And just to be diplomatic about it.
Gotcha.
So
how are you announcing it on Monday?
Well, we'll have to. Since it's not going to fall on a day that we're recording podcasts, it won't be on the podcast until our next one. But we will. It'll hit social media.
Okay.
And then it'll hit the radio waves, And then, it'll be newspaper, all the traditional methods of things. So,
all right. I
don't mean to let you down, but it's something this big has to be dealt with carefully. Okay, so
I appreciate you letting me down right before the weekend.
Well, that's okay. It's okay. You'll get over it because you have other things to focus on, like your ADHD and caffeine and how it has to revert. So that
is true.
There you go. So anyway, I kind of want interesting thing. My pharmacist, he mentioned to me when I was last in picking up a prescription that he's a listener on our podcast. So he said, hey, you guys are always talking about what your content is and planning. He said, one thing I would like to hear, he said, I have in my mind what attorneys do, and a lot of it's based on television or you just think of courthouse lawyer. He's like, but since you all have developed Law Lite to allow people to get a look inward and to educate them on a lighter level, he said, I think I've heard you and PJ a couple times talk about transparency, that you want to be transparent to the public about things.
Right.
He said you need to kind of do a day in the life or a glimpse at what a day is like for you as an attorney in Owensboro. So I told him we would address that. Now
that's cool.
Now, just so that the listeners know, you literally did not know that we were going to talk about this until about 2 seconds before you hit that button, right? I said, today we're going to do a day in the life. And you're like,
that's pretty atypical, though, but that's what we want. It's an open forum to where we just kind of discuss things. We don't do any scripting.
Right,
we just
and if
go
we
right
research
into it.
a bunch of stuff. Now, one of the things we have done in the past is, like, if we get into a conversation and we want to fact check it, we'll go back and look at it, or I'll pull it up on the phone while we're sitting here to check, like I think I talked about the one that comes to mind is when I talked about the number of deaths in Vietnam. Remember that?
Right. So, I mean, numbers and statistics and things
like that. We try to pull that up, or historical dates and things like that. But anyhow, my pharmacist, I'll tell you what, we'll give a plug to Nation's Pharmacy. How's that? And so we will address what a typical day is like for me here at Foreman Watson Holtry. So for those that don't know, we do have 5 offices. However, I predominantly practice out of the Owensboro office. Now, as you know, from time to time, I will go down to Hartford there maybe once a month, twice a month.
Right.
I'll make it to Bowling Green maybe once every couple months to that office. I make it to Evansville about once every 3 or 4 months, So, but I predominantly, my daily visit to the office is Owensboro.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so our office is set up to where the law firm is on the first floor, on the second floor of the high rise, and the land title business is on the first floor. So I'll come in usually in the morning, and since we talked about caffeine, I'll be very candid. I go to the coffee maker and I start a cup of coffee.
Right. Yep.
And then I go into our what would you call that area? The work area, the kind of the workspace area.
Are you talking about where Amy and Kelly
sit, but then has all the open area where I?
Yeah.
I'll normally, after starting a cup of coffee, I'll go in there, and because I took work home the night before, I always take work home, whether it's a lot or a little. Something is taken home so that I do a little bit more work after I leave here.
Right.
Whatever that is, I will unload my bag, and I will give that work to. If it's I've revised letters, I've revised pleadings, which are things that are going to be filed in court. If I've watched one of your settlement proposals, my notes, and then I take those to the people here in the office that need to finish that up. So, for example, if you send me home, I think you just handed me a thumb drive.
Yeah, I just gave you a presentation.
I'm in depositions today, so that'll be looked at tonight. Okay, so then if I come in the morning. Right. I will have a Post-it note or a piece of paper with it, and I'll say, hey, here's the changes you need to make, or hey, this is good to go, let's get it out, that type of thing. So the first few minutes of the day is just disseminating the work that I finished the night before, okay? Now, it's hard to say, well, what is a typical day like? Because there's not many typical days. For example, today, as soon as we're done recording this, I'm going into depositions, and I have 3 depositions. And so that's not a typical day because I'm not sitting at my desk. I'm not, answering phone calls. I'm not answering emails. I'm not giving instructions to different staff members.
Right.
Okay.
How much time would you say you spend in the morning going through emails? Like, because you have your hand in so many different cases and things.
Right.
How many emails are you going through and spending
the
time?
morning ones aren't as bad. So my morning routine before I get here is I wake up about 4:30, 4:45. And I eat a little snack, and then at around 5:30, I have a gym at my house, like a home workout area.
Right.
And I'll do anywhere from a 45 to a minute to an hour and 15-minute workout. And a lot of times I gauge that workout based upon what time I need to be at the office. Like today I knew I needed to be here at 9, so I did a little bit longer workout.
Incidentally, I'm still asleep while you're doing all that.
All right. So, well,
so I can keep my figure.
when I'm done working out, a lot of times it's like, 7:30, 8. So I will jump in the shower, and Missy a lot of times will make me a protein drink or something while I'm in the shower, and I'll go out and I will answer some emails that are my morning emails. So a lot of times my morning emails are people responding to stuff I sent out the night before while I was at the house working in my home office, okay? To answer your question, my morning emails I keep up with pretty well. By the time I make it to the office, I may get 10 to 15 emails between driving from home to here. And because of distracted driving, I've really tried not to look at those while I drive. I used to answer them as I drove. And so usually it's 10 to 15 emails to look at once I get here. But I've already addressed.
Right, I was going to say, that's not too bad.
I've already addressed 15 to 30, maybe 30 to 45 of them there in my morning routine, okay, on my phone or on a laptop. But when I get here, after I've disseminated that work, if it's a typical day and I don't have an appointment, the first thing I'll do is I'll sit down and I'll turn on the computer. I'll pull up our case management system. I'll pull up our server, remote server to where I'm in on everything. Everybody here's outfitted now, 2 screens. It's crazy. But, and then I'll address what emails have come in between the time I drove there from the house to here. One of the things we had to go to, as you may remember, is I had to send something out saying I do client appointments on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays in these hours, and then on Tuesday and Thursdays in these hours. And then if we can't get them in, then you go to the next week. Okay.
Right.
So I do that to allow myself some pockets of time to get caught up on email, because I know the question you were asking is because you've heard me say, like, and we can do a little test on it. We've been recording this now for about, 11, 12, 13 minutes?
13 minutes.
And let's just go. In 13, when I started, I had caught up on my emails. I have 12 emails. Okay?
So you're getting an email a minute.
And what you said was true, is I've got my hands in a lot of different areas. So the way we're set up is every time a staff member does something, not only does it record it into the case management system, it also generates an email where it populates, and I know what that person did.
Right.
So we have a lot of inter-office emails, and then we have emails that come from other attorneys, insurance adjusters, vendors, and those kinds of things, okay? So that kind of answers your question. I'm answering email. There you go. Perfect example. Okay?
Can't even do a podcast.
Can't even do a podcast. You should keep that in there.
Oh, I'm going to. That was perfect.
And that was not scripted. I mean,
no.
That was somebody asking if the court reporter could go ahead and get set up for the depositions. That's
right.
What it was.
Okay.
So the emails that I'm answering, if I was to break it down throughout the course of the day, I would say 50 to 60% is inter-office emails, me reading. So every time Missy summarizes medical records, I get an update about it. Every time a phone call comes in that's fielded by one of the staff members, I get because that tells me, do I need to do something further, or has it been taken care of?
Right.
So 50 to 60% of the emails in a day are from the staff. 20% of the emails that I get are from other attorneys or insurance adjusters who are on the other side, adversaries in the case, okay? So that's just scheduling depositions, talking about orders, settlement offers, settlement demands, back and forth, just just managing your cases through email as opposed to phone calls. The remaining emails I get are two types. One is marketing, because we do a lot of marketing, and I strategize with those people. But the other one is an interesting one. I'm a member on 2 or 3 listservs, which are a lot of lawyers who have a lot of things in common get on these listservs. You can put inquiries out like, hey, I've got this issue. Has anybody briefed this lately? The last case I saw reported on this issue is Smith versus Jones. Have I missed any recent cases? And so we swap ideas, so to speak, strategies. Yeah. Whenever I get an attorney on the other side that I'm not familiar with, I can put that attorney's name in and say, what do I need to know? And we just get a database of information on these people. So those are my listservs. I'm a member of a big listserv, which is more general, and then I have a couple what I call inner circle listservs that you have to meet certain requirements to be on. One of them is just a group of about 70 lawyers, which is pretty small considering all the lawyers in Kentucky. Right. And the other one probably has about 200, and they are exclusive listservs. You have to have accomplished certain things, tried certain number of cases to be in them, and that type of thing.
Now, with those, is it all mainly just personal injury attorneys, or is it like a myriad of different types?
The general one, the bigger one, has all types of practitioners, family law, probate law, business law, things like that.
Right.
Personal injury. The smaller ones are focused primarily on injury litigation, and they're very helpful.
I was getting ready to say, I'm sure they are.
There's a lot of times I read stuff, I don't comment on it. Kind of like, you kind of surf it, And so those are my emails. It's been probably close to a year now. Did try to keep track one for a period of about 10 days so I could figure out time management, which is when I went to that thing about scheduling. I did some time management analysis on myself. And in a given day, a low for emails that are addressed.
Like how many emails you address? The
for
lowest?
A low,
60.
No, it's just over 300 is the low. And the high is around, the high day is up in the 600 and pushing 700 emails.
Holy crap!
So that's the email work. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
When I've kind of broken down the emails. The phone calls are diverse. Okay. I get calls from clients, calls from insurance adjusters, calls from prospective clients. Like I just got from staff members buzzing me on the phone, and then a myriad of personal calls too, so and marketing calls. So but when I did that analysis on my typical on my how I was spending my time, believe it or not, my phone time was not near as much. I was only fielding, on an average day, anywhere from 20 to 25 calls. That's about the number of calls I'm fielding. Okay.
Right.
The third component of a typical day is that we have client meetings. Now, during COVID, that was all done by phone or by Zoom or by that. But in a typical day, on those, when we finally broke it down into having certain time periods when I would have office appointments, 2 or 3 meetings, either with an attorney, either with a client, an existing client, or a prospective client. Some days, because of the way that court hearings are scheduled and things, it's hard to get people in, then I'll get stacked up on a day with clients and prospective clients and have 5 or 6 in one day. But those days are not nearly as common as they used to be. And then the last part of my day is that carve-out time that I don't see clients, which is used for answering emails, used for answering calls, but when I'm not on a call or not on an email, then I'm looking at my tasks for the day, which are our case management system. So it may say that I need to reach out to an eyewitness in a case, and I have given myself 10 days to do that. Notoriously, I'll bump it from the first day it's on my calendar to the second, and the second to the third.
Right.
But I've make myself in that parameter to talk to that witness. Okay. So somewhere in those periods of time that are not allotted to clients, when I'm not answering emails and when I'm not answering phone calls, I work on my own tasks on cases, like reaching out and talking to a witness or reaching out and talking to a client. A lot of, when I was a young lawyer, the attorney I worked for, who you've heard me tell some stories about, Charlie Moore, he taught me that he goes, the first hardest thing about practicing law is getting clients. The second hardest thing is keeping them. And I used to wonder, well, what does he mean keeping them? Well, it means keeping them happy, you know?
Yeah.
And so, there, you know, if I look at a file and we haven't either written a client, emailed a client, or called a client in 2 weeks, they need to be contacted. I do not let them go 2 weeks without being contacted. It's just a rule of thumb. And if we've gone, now sometimes it's not me. Sometimes I'll have an assistant call and get a medical, like Missy gets a lot of medical updates.
Right.
I'll have, you know, Amy or say, hey, give, you know, Susie Q a call, tell her what I've been doing in the case. If she has any questions, we can set up a TC for me to talk to her, but just give her an update, you know. And sometimes I do those by letter, sometimes I do them by emails, and sometimes I do them by calls. But so, you know, that kind of gives you a snapshot. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, well, how much time are you actually in court? And it's not that much. It's not because we don't have cases in litigation, but it's because a lot of what we can do without having to go to court now. We have electronic filing. We have a lot of matters that are determined by the court without having hearings. So, but, you know, still, in a given month, I'm over at court 4 or 5 times a month, you know, on hearings or motions or that kind of thing. Trials are, and we've talked about this on several episodes, you're not trying as many cases anymore because of mediation, and we had a couple of episodes about mediation. Right. So, you know, that's the thing. There's a lot to doing it right. Okay, I feel like I have an obligation to you guys to be there, accessible to you when you have needs. You know, so then there's my staff members that walk in and talk to me about, hey, you know, my husband's having some problems with vertigo, and we're going to go to Louisville, and is it okay if I, you know, you have a lot of those issues, and you want to be accessible. As you know, it's very rare my door's closed. I mean, it's closed when you know, I have an open door policy, and that's kind of there's pros and cons to that. I'm distracted a lot. That's why taking work home in the evening is when I get the most work done. That's kind of the typical pattern, is to work through the day. I don't go, I would say it's not even once a month. Once every 2 months, I may go out for lunch. I bring my lunch here. I work at my, you know, I eat at my desk. Now, sometimes, like yesterday, I went out for a walk. You know, I just walked around the block to get some fresh air before that deposition, because I knew I was going to be in a deposition all day. I just went, you know, just got out, got some fresh air, walked around, got my blood going, came back in. And so, you know, I'll do that, and, you know, but I don't go to many business lunches.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, the last time we did the podcast, you ate your lunch right before we did the podcast while we were talking and discussing some things.
Right. I'm not a heavy eater, as you know. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I bring a series of what I call just snacks through the day, really, instead of a lunch, to try to kind of keep my energies levels up. But my formula is not the same as everybody else's. It's what works for me. I'm heavily dependent on paralegals. I'm heavily dependent on a medical assistant. I'm heavily dependent on a settlement package department, you know, video. Right. But the more of that stuff you create, the more you're overseeing, so you still have to communicate. You know,
absolutely.
Even though it's been delegated, you can't just delegate and walk away. You have to delegate and communicate. I guess to show how that's been an evolution, so to speak, you know, you've seen it change since you've been here. How we have to deal with the volumes, and then I hope to think that that'll continue. Coming out of COVID, we'll pick right back up to where we were. But, you know, it has changed a lot for me. You know, I used to dictate everything into a dictaphone and then give the tapes to my thing. Now, basically, I dictate an email, shoot the email to them, and they take it and plug it into a letter.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot easier. I type a lot of my own stuff, you know.
That was one thing that I was going to ask you about, because I noticed a constant that was throughout you talking about your day was you using technology to keep in touch with either clients or, you know, cases and the staff. In the time that since you first started doing this, how much have these programs and the technology changed how you do what you do? And has it made it like infinitely easier in a lot of respects compared to how you used to have to do things?
It has. It's interesting. That's a question that I've discussed with a lot of good close friends that are lawyers. The ground rules for being successful in a case will never change. You got to pay attention to details.
Right.
You have to think about the language you use in your case. You have to perceive the strengths and weaknesses, and you have to learn how to communicate about them. Okay, those things are not going to change, regardless of technology. What technology has allowed us to do is handle more cases than we used to. The problem is the cost of that goes right along with it. So I don't think you make any more money handling more cases than when we did without it. But to give you an idea, when I first started practicing law over at Charlie's office, it was 2 years before I had my own computer. I was practicing law without a computer. We had one computer in the library, and I'd go down and use it for research. I remember the cell phone I had was huge, you know. But there was not even at that time, was just when fax machines were starting to come into play, and you'd get these curled up pieces of paper that came off the fax. There was no plain paper fax. It was rolled up on this fax paper. You would buy fax paper in rolls, you know, kind of like aluminum foil. I mean, you know, you'd set it in your fax machine and it would come out kind of like a receipt. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And you'd have to stretch them out and put them in books so they would flatten out, or make a copy of them on a copy machine so it would be on plain paper. And then plain paper faxes came. The internet was just coming into play when I was sworn in. Okay. So, you know, again, learning how to use the internet and how to implement it into your practice was a big thing. Our technology continues to get better. All that does is shorten hands-on time and make available to do more cases. But the principles of what makes a case successful haven't changed.
I got one real quick follow-up question, and what made me think of this is because I actually had a client ask me this once when I was setting them up for an interview, and that was, you know, in our main conference room, there's a library. One thing I've noticed when I've been to other attorneys' offices is there's always those, and I think it's kind of a cliche in commercials and things that you see, is the bookshelves with all the law books.
The volumes.
Right.
Yeah.
And someone, when I was setting them up once, asked me, they were like, how often do those books get used? Now, I couldn't answer that question because I don't ever have a need to use those books.
Right.
How often do you use those books versus researching stuff through an online database?
I cannot remember the last time I took one of those off the shelf and looked at it. Why? Because I have it all access to it online. Now, I'm accessing the law. I'm reading it. I'm digesting it. I'm saving it. But I'm not making copies out of a book. I'm not reading it in a book and then making copies and then putting it into a file.
Yeah.
I will find it online. We use Westlaw. It's called Westlaw Edge. I'll take it from there. I can mark it up in a digital format. I can highlight it digitally. I can save it into my file. I can send it to the attorney that needs to see it. You know, I can put it into a letter. I can copy and paste portions of it and then cite to it.
Right.
So it's a lot easier. Now, is that how I learned? No, I learned in the library.
Opening those books,
That's
right?
I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are really for looks down there. I mean, if you want to know the books that I look, we're sitting in my office right now. The one that says Kentucky Motor Vehicle Insurance Law, I use it a lot. One more interruption. These depositions are getting ready to start, so we're going to have to shut this down. But,
okay.
But no, the Kentucky Rules of Court, the purple one, those are the rules of our court, so I access that book a lot. The motor vehicle insurance, and then the one that's about 4 or 5 over that's white, it says Kentucky Wrongful Death Actions.
Yeah.
And then the one next to that's the federal rules. Those 4 books, I mean, my bookshelf literally has, what, if you were to estimate, only 20 books on it, maybe 30.
Yeah.
But of those 30, the 4 that I use the most are the ones I said. Now, those jury instructions that are there, I look at that a lot. But you know, there's just a smattering of books up there that I use. Those books behind you, I haven't touched those books behind you. You know, so that's a very good question, and a lot of people.
Once again, it's that ease of technology, though.
It really is. You can just cut and paste and do what you need. So, hey, I hope this helped anybody who was wondering, a look at how we do things or how I do things, kind of what my day looks like as an attorney here in Owensboro, Kentucky. And I hope it's helpful in some way. And your questions are very pertinent because I get asked that a lot of those questions. So. Cool. Anyway, next time.
I want to thank your pharmacist for listening.
That's right. It's awesome. Cool. More and more people are listening, so just jump on board. Law Lite, brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtry, FWHlegal.com. Brought to you by P.J. and Travis here at the high-rise White Tower, 530 Frederick Street, Owensboro, Kentucky. And until next time, when we will be able to make the formal announcement, we're out of here.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham, of a mockery of a travesty of two mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!